Okay, perfect. All right. Well, we have been asked to come over and talk a little bit about de-escalation. My name is Officer Sachs. I've been with the police department for 18 years now in April. And part of my part-time duties is teaching de-escalation to our sworn personnel as well as our recruit class when we have officers come through our academy. So this is kind of a scaled-back version of what we teach to our law enforcement. That's typically an 8-hour class. I brought this down to about 15. So we're going to skip through some of the tactical movements and stuff like that we use, but we're going to touch on some of those that I think are important for you guys. So de-escalation, what we're looking for during de-escalation is we're trying to gain voluntary compliance. Okay. So what we want to do is when we tell somebody what we want them to do, put your hands behind your back, put your hands up in the air. We want them to do that by themselves. Okay. We don't want to have to force anybody to do anything because that then becomes dangerous to us and the safety and that person, right? So gaining voluntary compliance is the goal of de-escalation. So what this training is going to cover is skills you already use on a daily basis. We're just going to use the interpersonal human skills that you guys have, that you communicate on a daily basis with. We're not going to build a new structure or make anything crazy that it's not. We're going to do what you guys have always been doing. We're going to pull those skills together and apply them to non-critical incidents. If it's a critical incident, typically that's when we get involved. Non-critical incident, just trying to get somebody to sit down in a chair and be quiet during the remainder of the ride is kind of what we're after on this. If there is an important issue or a serious issue, that's when you're going to call us. And what's our number one concern in that instance? If there's an active fight or a stabbing or something going on in the bus, what's our number one focus? Our passengers, right? The safety of the passengers. So at that point, we're looking at opening doors, getting everybody off, minimizing the amount of victims that we have are available to the suspect. Emphasizing teamwork, that goes more for us, and recognizing persons in crisis. That's where I brought in our behavioral health unit. They'll introduce themselves as they speak and kind of what their role is within the behavioral health unit and how there are some changes that went along with that as well. So de-escalation strategies. Tactical disengagement, I teach this to our recruit officers, and what I try to get focused on is not the fact that disengagement, when the police are sent to an issue, whether it's a disturbance or something like that, we don't have the opportunity to disengage completely, turn around and just get in our car and drive off. We're there to help solve that problem and make sure that it's safe for everybody. So we don't get to leave, but we do get to take a step back. Excuse me. And during that step back, what we're doing is we're trying to get whatever units that we might need, whatever resources, whatever time that we have. Resources are huge in this instance, and that's when the behavioral health unit will typically step in. The redeployment, we're going to look for an opportunity that is best for us, the safest possible time for us, as well as the suspect and anybody in the area, to redeploy our assets to try to then further de-escalate it. The advantages to tactical disengagement, we just kind of talked about that. It creates time to observe, gather assets, and plan for redeployment. From a law enforcement perspective, our goal is to get the scene contained to a small area, right? We don't want people having the opportunity to come in and out of our scene. We don't want our suspect leaving. Victims can leave, that's fine, but we want to know where they're at, so we try to get that perimeter set. So if we need a bigger perimeter, it might take us longer to get those assets in place. It's going to allow us time to redeploy, like I said, at a more favorable time, place, or an emotional state. It can avoid unnecessary conflict that can be won by diplomacy, right? We try to talk them into their own, get them on our side so that they voluntarily comply. Disengage for tactical objective, we kind of already talked about that. Odds in our favor. Is it best for us to wait until it's dark outside? If it's dark already, do we need to move now before it gets light outside? Those are the things that we're looking at when we pick and choose the timing. Can we change the odds in our favor? Sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. If it's something we can't change, typically those scenarios and those scenes run quicker. Is there a safer opportunity? Again, that's our assets, getting our assets in place. Whether it be a canine, whether it be the bomb squad, whatever it might be that we need that time to get there. Turning our minds to tactical disengagement and redeployment requires a plan. What are my contingencies and what's plan B? Whenever we have a scenario that I can imagine on a bus, I've seen so many across the country. Chicago has a lot of issues on buses, and Austin, Texas has a lot of issues on buses too. Whenever we have a plan for a major incident that is occurring on a bus, we always have a plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D. Whether it's in a house or a bus or a car, we always have those contingency plans. So one of the people on scene is going to be making those second, third, fourth plans. So these are the 10 things that frequently happen before someone gets assaulted. These are defined by the FBI. FBI did a very long, I guess you'd call it a study. They interviewed over 100 different suspects who assaulted, battered, injured law enforcement officers during the arrest. And they went back and looked at what were these commonalities within those suspects. And they put together a list of 32 what they call pre-attack indicators. If you guys are bored, I highly suggest looking at it. Google search FBI pre-attack indicators, and you're going to get a whole list of them. These are the ones that I tend to focus on. They like the overt threats. Give me my buddy back for that bus ticket, or I'm going to punch you in the face. Should we think that he might punch us in the face? Like, should we believe him? Yeah. People will tell you what they're going to do before they do it, typically, right? So those are your overt threats, talking out loud, telling them what they're going to do. Non-compliance, if you tell them to sit down and they don't sit down, that's another key that could potentially lead to an attack. Removing clothing is the tricky one. When we talk about cocaine or methamphetamine-induced psychosis, we're talking about an extreme elevation in the temperature of the body. So people will start taking their clothes off to help cool themselves, and some people might take their shirt off just because that's how people fight, right? So anytime clothing gets removed, we need to start looking at the potential attack. Furtive communication, again, that's just going to be the communication, the style that he's delivering. Mental alteration, the boiling point physiology, and you can see this. I'm sure you guys are kind of cued in on your passengers, what they're doing, how they're acting, that kind of thing. You see a lot of people sitting down, they kind of start rocking, they're nervous, and then they might start hitting their hand, they might start punching the seat, and the next thing you know, they're attacking somebody, right? So that level of aggression as it continues on kind of a spectrum is what we're looking for. Target glances. When we go into arrest people, and I don't know, we talked about fire extinguishers and the access to, any weapons that might be on the bus that we don't think is weapons, but somebody's going to find that a way to use that as a weapon if they're looking at it or they're, tracking it. When we go to arrest people, we have people look at our guns, look at our tasers, look at our magazines. When they're looking at those things, they're in their mind, right? So we already know that there's something coming up. The 1,000-yard stare, that's the guy that's looking through you. He's not looking at you or listening to you. He's looking through you all the way down the road. And any type of violent history, which these folks will all have access to. We like names if we can get names. So if you guys know who the person is, or you've had dealings with him before, or have any way to identify him, if you're speaking to dispatch and you're telling them that you need our help, providing that name is huge, because we can get that to them and they can start looking through their databases as well to see if they're, assigned to Astra, right? If they receive any homeless outreach programs, and then we can start looking at any medications they might be taking. We can kind of get through that. So your active listening skills are important. If people are able to determine whether or not you're actually listening to them to hear what they have to say, or if you're listening to try to talk over them, right? Some people just do that. They don't listen to hear, they just listen to talk, right? So part of that active listening is minimal encouragement. Your voice tones are important indicators of your interest. Your encouragers need to be expressive, but not overdone. Key phrases are like okay and yes. So if he's talking about, well, I'm mad because I want my money back for my ticket, you can say, okay, I understand that. Maybe we can work through that. Offer some options, something like that. But you don't want to get angry at this point, because they're just going to get angry back. This is typically early in the encounter. Paraphrasing, again, people know when you're not listening. So if you can use their actual words when they're telling you their story, if you can use actual quotes that they've given you, they know you're listening, because you couldn't have just pulled that out of your hat, right? Emotional labeling, put words to their emotion. If they're upset or angry, call it upset or angry. If they're scared or they're worried, call it scared or worried. That gives them a place to start. And then from that point, we can start working on tipping that teeter-totter, okay? I think of all this as a teeter-totter. When you have extreme emotion, your irrational goes up. Your ability to think rationally goes way down when your emotions are high. We can't do it. So what we try to do is lower those emotions, which will then raise that rational thinking, right? Open-ended questions. You can try to get questions. It's just intel. What you're doing is trying to figure out what might be the problem, what you can maybe do to help. And iMessages. You're acting as any other person might in a response. I feel frustrated when you yell at me. If he's punching the seat, it's unsafe on this bus. I feel like it's unsafe for my passengers if you continue to do that. All your buses are recorded, right? The recording's running inside all the buses. So if they hear you talking this out, if it does get to a situation that could get out of hand or get worse, you're documenting the fact that you're doing everything you can to try to calm this person down. Effective pauses are great. If somebody's ranting and raving, most of the time that's what they want to do, right? We all have that friend that calls us and rants about whatever. Let them talk. Don't cut them off. Don't give them any more words. Just let them talk. I saw somebody go, yep. Active listening can kind of be boiled down into this particular statement. We hear half of what has been said. We listen to half of that. We understand half of that, and we remember half of that. So a 16th of the information that's coming across is what we're actually understanding, hearing, and learning. Don't provide fake attention. If you're talking to somebody, don't act like you're interested, but you're not. People pick up on that. We've all done that. And don't talk to talk, or don't listen to somebody just to talk. Allow them to talk, and then when you are able to interrupt, interrupt. Listening only for facts and missing the main point. Poor listening habits include letting trigger words interfere with the rest of the message. During that discussion, you're going to figure out those terms or those words or those things that make the situation worse. If we're talking about like court, and he's late for court, if you bring up court, that makes him mad. So we're not going to bring up court, right? We might bring up some options as how to get around that or work with somebody, or we can talk to the police department. They can figure something out, but don't bring up court. Daydreaming, it's pretty obvious. Do not interrupt. Let them talk. Let them rant. Body language. This was just a video that kind of highlights, and I don't know if it won't turn up all the way.
Yeah, no, and I think part of it has to do with how everything's connected.
Okay, and it's really no big deal. It was a short clip of the discussion of how to, if you're closed off like this, people don't think you're listening. If you're opened up like this, people think you're listening, right? So when I ask for somebody's name and date of birth, I don't say, sir, give me your name and date of birth, right? Whatever I'm touching, the stance that I'm in, all those things are uninviting. So try to have an open, positive discussion, right? The 80-20 rule of communication, we use this in hostage negotiations all the time. Our goal is to listen 80% of the time and talk 20%. So let them talk because they're giving you intel that you want. They're telling you why they're upset, any medications they might be on, last doctor visits they were at, all those different things come into play. So just let them talk. The key is to listen actively, both with your eyes and ears, right? Some people like to be looked in the eye when they're talked to. Some people don't. So if they don't, we're not going to push that, right? Listen to body language and facial expressions. It's no different than your stance. Sometimes this direct talk, maybe sometimes a little bit more of a bladed stance is a little bit more professional. Maybe it's a little bit better received by your individual. 80% of listening, 20% of talking. Body language is huge. Make eye contact or don't. You'll know very early on in the conversation if eye contact is not wanted. Your posture is very important. Use open-handed gestures. So if you're talking, try to be open, right? I always try to keep my hands about shoulder level because I'm not up here. That's awkward looking, like Ricky Bobby when his hands start going up like this. I don't know what to do with my hands right now, right? So right here is normal. It's open. It's acceptable, right? But I can still block. I can still do the things that I need to do, get to my weapons, do whatever I need to get to. But it's very open and like they understand that posture. Moderate your tone of voice. If people are yelling really loud, sometimes we get soft. Sometimes we talk. And it will bring them down. I've tried on my kids, works sometimes. Most of the time with my wife. So appearance is very important too. The professional look. Your boots are polished, your uniform is looking good. All those types of things actually make it safer for you as a professional. I talk about one incidents in Oklahoma where there was a trooper or a county sheriff who was shot and killed on a traffic stop. And when they arrested the bad guy, they found out that he was stopped by a state trooper just about 20 minutes before that. And they asked him, why did you shoot the deputy, but you didn't shoot the trooper? And he said, well, when the trooper got out of his car, he walked up, he had his hat on, his boots were polished, his gear was nice and kept. His clothes were ironed, he looked very professional. And he said, I didn't think I could take that guy. But the sheriff that was, still had coffee stains on his shirt and french fries in his belt, I thought I could take him, and he did. People feel the need to be respected. I think everybody will agree with that. People would rather be asked to do or asked than told what to do. People have a desire to know why. You hear, I don't know if you guys ever watch Cops, fans of Cops. They want to know, why are they stopped? Why are they getting a ticket? All these things. You may or may not have time to explain to them why, but eventually you'll get to the point or get to a time when you can discuss that with them and explain to them why. People prefer to have options over threats, and people want to have a second chance. They get kicked off the bus for any particular reason, and they say, well, no, I'm never going to be able to ride the bus again. You say, we give people second chances. That's a huge one in my opinion. Make people like you. Remember their name. If you know them, try to call them by their name. And that even helps with people just getting on the bus. So de-escalation isn't always necessary in the moment. It can also be done before you even get on scene of an issue, right? If we know this person, we can call them by their name when they give us the ticket or get on the bus or whatever it is. You're already posing as a good guy, right? I can't attack the bus driver. He knows my name. You know what I mean? Encourage others to talk about themselves. Make that person feel important, but do it sincerely, okay? When they're talking about make them talk about themselves, give them the opportunity to talk about themselves in a light that is intel focused. So whatever intelligence you might be able to get from that. And this is where I am done.
Pass over your microphone.
I'm not touching.
I'll just hold it. So I'm Officer Razo. I have about 24 years on the department. I've been in the BHE unit for approximately 13 of those years. I started on the crisis management side, and then I went over to the homeless outreach side, which has been in effect probably about 4 years now. So I'm the interim supervisor for right now, till they figure out what they're going to do about putting a supervisor in our unit. And we are made up of first shift co-responder with police department and a social worker, and then second shift. So I'll let Christy introduce herself and where she's at.
Hi, I'm Christy Hill. I actually work for, it used to be Vallejo, but now it's Astra Family Service and Guidance, which does all youth services, and Vallejo, which does all adult services, have merged into one big community mental health center. That was as of January 1, and the name is Astra. So I'm a mental health clinician. I ride with, and I work for Astra technically, but I ride with Officer Montoya every day on shift, Monday through Friday from 12:30 to about 8:30 every day.
I'm Officer Montoya. I'm with the BHU. I've been here for about a year. Me and Christy handle a lot of people in crisis in their lowest moments where our end goal is not to take them to jail. Like, that's not going to solve the solution in the long run. We're trying to keep them out of jail and better help them in the long run so we all get along a little better, and hopefully we can continue on that path. We're doing great work, just baby steps, I would assume.
So here's a basic definition: behavioral crisis, an episode of mental and or distress that is creating an instability or a danger and is considered disruptive by the community, friends, family, or that person. Now, we're also talking about mental health, but we're also talking about substance abuse as well. That kind of derives from that. So it's not only that they may have some intellectual or cognitive disability, may not be on their medication or may be self-medicating, but they're also, and when I say self-medicating, there's with basically street narcotics, right? Anywhere from methamphetamine to cocaine to meth or marijuana, cat, stuff like that. So, which also gives that part of the mental health portion as well that we have to be cognizant about. How to recognize someone who is in crisis, mental health illness, focus on the subject's behavior, don't rush into the situation. So these are just, we're doing a small intro of this part of what CRT holds because this is more on escalation. We've already went through those. Officer Sachs had talked about a lot of this stuff, but this is what the meat, what you have to be aware of as far as our portion of it. This is the contact information of who we are and what parts that we have open. So we have my contact. Like I said, I do all the homeless outreach. So if it's not an emergency and you have something that needs to be brought to my attention, I'll take care of it on the email side. My phone number's there. We have all that contact information. I think you took it down last time.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah.
I have everything.
So they got all this stuff. So if needed, the one thing that will focus, I'll let Christy talked about, she does have a number, but it's not always monitored 24/7 because they're actually working on calls. So we went to a different place of what we're providing for the future. And that would be this. So traditionally, when stuff was brought out and stuff back, I believe before 2008, it was the patrol officer. That's all we had. That person basically established and worked those calls. We just got that portion because no other agency that we had local would be able to work those violent calls or where someone's going through a mental health crisis. After 2008, there was a version of what CIT was and all that stuff, which now ventures into the crisis intervention response, the co-response program, which is basically TPD, Astra, and we answer all those calls. Well, we found out that was just basically too much. We need to divide this a little bit more and see how we can do that, because what will end up happening is the fact that, yes, we will go out and work those calls, but some of those calls don't need an officer. Yes, years ago, it would have been like the presence of an officer would solve some stuff, but then it also found out that it would also escalate the situation as well. So what they came up with and what we are now working towards is a mobile response. That mobile response is going to be a clinician, right? And a case manager of some sort if it's nonviolent, that's what they'll respond to, or if they're needing some type of medical. Currently, that's what we have right now. What's going to go into the future, what we're going to add to our tool belt, is that the fire department is trying to do a co-pilot program where they have a paramedic, a nurse, and a case manager or some social worker that's with them as well that are responding to those medical calls, right? And those are the ones that are coming where I have fallen down, or they're just known to the system, some type of medical issue or whatever, or they're at the bus stop and there's just a medical situation that's been chronic there, and so that they have some type of they need some type of social worker as well. A case manager they may need help on a long-term basis. So that's a program that's going to go into effect. I will let Christy go more detailed on what the aspect it looks from Astra's point of view.
Sure. Is the next screen or
believe so.
next one? Yeah. So just really in many of the big community mental health centers, so Sedgwick County, Johnson County, Douglas County, have created, with the help and support of the Kansas Department of Disability and Aging, KDADS, this kind of alternative response to people who are in the community who are having a mental health crisis. Having an officer come is not always the most appropriate response for that person. So creating kind of a tiered system where if you have someone who is got a weapon, is threatening, that kind of thing, that is a law enforcement call, 911. If you have someone in the community who maybe is verbally aggressive, struggling in that sense, and maybe an officer would be a good thing to have along, then our unit, the BHU, is probably who you should call. You can call dispatch and ask for the BHU team. And the last one is our mobile crisis. And we say these are cold calls. So someone's on your bus, you can tell that they're not doing well. You might ask them, hey, I've got this number of this team that can come out to you and kind of talk to you about resources or help you through whatever crisis. There's no safety concerns, really. This person is open to having them come out. Then that is a mobile response call. And we've given you the phone number and extension as well as the email. You can call that if you want to take a screenshot with your phone or whatever. Okay, she's going to send out. So this is, again, a new response. So not everybody knows about it. You can also call 988. Somebody in the community, if they call 988, instead of 911, they call 988. They will get a person on the other line who can then send out the mobile team if they would like it. So it's new to Shawnee County. I think it's only been in the last, 5-6 months. But Douglas, Johnson, Wyandotte, Sedgwick County are all kind of investigating this as an alternative to the police. I will say our unit, one thing I really love about it is that we ride in a police car, but it's unmarked, so it's just gray. You can't tell that. I mean, you can kind of tell that it's a police car, but it's not like you're rolling up with TPD written on the side. And Officer Montoya wears a kind of slightly altered uniform. He still has all of his weapons and stuff, but he doesn't have the word police or Topeka police written on the back of his shirt. So it's a little bit kinder, sort of gentler approach to folks. And I do appreciate that. I think, if you're paranoid and you think the FBI's out after you, and then the police roll up, that's going to make you even more paranoid. So, having us be a little bit under the radar in terms of letting people know who we are is probably a good thing. Do you guys have any questions about this at all? It's really, I think it's just such a great alternative and thinking outside the box when you're dealing with people.
So like I said, I think we've talked about it, you can reach out. So it's more of a precursor to what, if you want to be more in depth and want to be more informed, it's a CIT course that's about a week long. We do one in the spring and then one towards the fall. It coincides with our police academy. So it's in there. We also open up chairs for anybody in the community to be involved in that portion, just to see what those aspects and give you another tool on how that works. It runs a range from medical stuff to medications to scenarios. If you guys are willing and open to it, we probably can put a scenario from the bus station, make it more realistic to you guys, depending if it's the station itself. We just go off who comes into the training on how we tailor those scenario based. But it's scenario based, how to respond to it, show you what things to look at, just to make it more real and not be so PowerPoint, right? And then part of it, it's actually part of the program that they have to have some scenario based in there, so that you can get a credit for it, because it is a certification, and that it certifies you as well, that you're able to work through those parameters. All right. Appreciate your time. Thanks, everybody. All right.